And I told you, the interview I did with Sharansky, was the most successful, interesting interview I had. But that was only before I interviewed Rabbi Freundlich. So I want to invite him to this new format we're trying tonight of asking him all the questions I have after this, getting to know your beautiful community. Yeah, why not? Yeah. Let's pull it a little bit.
I am more nervous now than I was when I came from my brother Shabbos by far. It's not even close.
Okay. So, Shavuot Tov.
Shavuot Tov.
And basically, okay, here it is. Okay, take some water. It's okay.
I'm realizing now how smart Rivki was for declining to do this with me.
Oh, that's good. Rivki, you want to join us spontaneously? Okay. First of all, I want to ask you, as like a foreigner, like an Israeli, and in Israel, I know what Rav means. Rav here is everything. Psychologist, social worker, coacher, everything. I mean, how do you define your job? I mean, what do? You don't, I mean, Rav is not someone who sits and learns all day. I don't know when do you have the time to learn. So, what's a Rav? What's the position? Explain me, what exactly do you do?
Rabbi Shire, can you answer this question for me? It's a good question. My children ask me that all the time. What do you do all day? It's a lot of sitting in the office. It is a little bit of everything. The North American rabbinate, I think, has shifted dramatically from what was throughout most of our history in Europe, certainly, where the rabbi was the biggest scholar in the community, and he would sit and learn most of the day. And it has become today a very pastoral role. A lot of counseling and organizing classes, social events, and learning. We try to do a lot of learning here in the shul also. It is, I think it was described to me once, which is the way that I try to live by, as the spiritual father of your kehillah. When a rabbi is appointed, the rabbi of his shul, he becomes the spiritual father of the community. And that means in every way. Looking after, caring, being concerned, and involved in congregants' lives as much as can be.
That's a beautiful definition. Now, a little bit about your personal story. I mean, why did you choose Rabbanut? And if you weren't a Rav, what would you do?
I still haven't decided what I want to be when I grow up. That's clear. Well, my whole life I thought I was going into sports.
Right.
Yeah, I only recently finally came to the realization I was not going to be a football player or a basketball player. But my family knows that the running joke in my family is if I weren't religious, I would for sure be a sportscaster. That would be fun. I think I'd have found a more meaningful calling than that. I really never grew up thinking, dreaming. It wasn't a thought in my mind that I was going to be a synagogue rabbi. Not once, until I was almost 30 years old. I didn't think I was going to do anything until I was about 18, that's for sure. And then I went to study in Israel for a couple of years, and I thought I would be a teacher in a high school. And that dream lasted about until I got to become a teacher in high school. Maybe 5 minutes into that, I realized that that's not what I wanted to do.
What's the name of the high school?
I don't want to say.
Okay.
I did enjoy, I love teaching. I still love teaching. Am I supposed to be speaking to you or to the crowd? I don't know.
That's always the question.
Yeah, what's that? How does that work?
I'll tell you the secret, okay, what we do. Usually I look when I have two shots. It's called, what we are doing now, it's called a two-shot because there are two people in the shot. When they shoot me, I look at the camera half of the time, they like sneak, like this, and then this, and then this. But it comes naturally, you don't work on it, Sometimes you look at me, sometimes they cry, okay?
That's overwhelming to look at everybody. Okay.
You can talk to me, it's okay.
Okay, so I forgot what I was in the middle of saying.
You were in high school and
I was
decided
in
you
high
want
school,
to
yes, I loved teaching, I still love teaching. But it was not something that I found that I could do all day, every day. Kol hakavod to the teachers out there. They are the most underpaid, dedicated, passionate people in the world, the Jewish teachers. It is a very hard... I teach now one class 3 days out of 9. So I'm there every third day. I teach one class, and it is avodah kasha, avodah chashuva. It is hard work to be a teacher. And I loved it, but it was, I found being in the same four walls, I found it very hard. So when I moved to Atlanta with Rivki after we were learning, I was studying in Baltimore Yeshiva for about 5 years, and we had an opportunity to move to Atlanta to teach. And we were part of a kollel, and then I had to decide what I wanted to be when I grew up. I was almost 30 years old, and I started asking around to everybody who I knew. And the majority of people suggested not high school education, but really the rabbinate. And that's what I did. I was in Atlanta, back to Georgia State University. I got a master's in counseling, and started looking for my first job from there. So it really was, I never grew up thinking this was going to happen. My parents are still in shock.
You come from a very observant house?
I come from a very modern Orthodox home. Went to modern Orthodox day school and high school in New Jersey and New York, and was supposed to become a doctor or a lawyer. That was the plan. Or a psychologist. My father's a psychologist. My mother's a social worker. My sister was a psychologist, and that's why I am the most unstable person.
God forbid, that's a revolutionary thing you did. Became a Rav.
That was my rebellion. The guy said, "I'll show you." So I became a rabbi. That's what happened. And it's really been a blessing. I've loved every minute of it. The true credit really goes to Rivki, because she never bought into this. It was not like when we got married, that was the plan, that I was going to be a synagogue rabbi. At best, maybe we had figured maybe something in high school education, maybe, but, and then all of a sudden she became a rebbitzin. So really the credit is to Rivki. The truth is, I'll just say, most people told me that I should become a rabbi because she would be the best rebbitzin.
Wow, okay. That's a good one. So how did you two meet each other? That's the personal part of it.
My version or your version? So we actually met when I was in the summer after 10th grade. We were on Camp Marasha is one of the camps in New York. They have a summer program.
Camp Marasha?
Camp Marasha.
Okay, no, my son went to Marasha Koilel. So you think he met his wife there?
No, this is before Kollel.
Okay.
This is following 10th grade. They have a program in Israel, a 7-week program in Israel, and we both were on that program. And we ended like 2 buses, and we ended up on the same bus. And our first conversation was about basketball and the New York Knicks. And I knew right then and there this was the girl that I was going to marry. It took about 5 years, but eventually that happened. We met there, and we were friendly in high school. And then after high school, we both studied in Israel, and went our own separate ways while we were learning in Israel. I ended up in Meir in Baltimore in Yeshiva, and she was in Stern College. And so that's a whole long story how we eventually, there was a couple of people who were involved who made sure that we both knew that each other was going to start dating, and the rest is history. That's the short version. She has a much more interesting version than I do.
Okay.
She likes telling it a lot more than I do as well.
Okay. I want to ask you something. I hope you won't be offended. Okay, I don't want to, but sometimes I tell, Rabbi Meir is here, right? You work for Yeshivat HaKotel with the American guys that are coming for Yeshivat HaKotel. The Rabbi Targim from the Mizrahi is also doing it. There are a lot of Yeshivot, not only Yeshivat HaKotel, they get these Americans for 1 year, and then they all go back. And I sometimes feel that's the most, I think, important job in the world, because that's the only year I see them in 5 times. Now, they're doctors, the best doctors, lawyers, Baruch Hashem, rich, wealthy people, very successful and everything, but it's the only part of their life that they will really, when they were really devoted, to one thing called Torah, Talmud Torah. Then I said to myself, but that's crazy. I mean, they're the best in anything, but they just give 1 year for Torah. They were like 18, 19, that's very nice, and the rest of their life they will work, get married, do everything, they have time for basketball, baseball, all the movies, books, everything, the whole culture. They're great people, but you have just this year to give them something. And only, I don't know how many of them choose, like you did, Rabbi Meir. You came from Rabbi Academy, you were there and you stayed for many, many years, Baruch Hashem. I think that also this gap year, also this word, this gap year became a meaningful year and you stayed. Now, first of all, do you think it's enough? Do you think it's healthy? A Jewish kid usually comes from a very modern school, he studies everything, then he goes or she goes for one concentrated year of Torah, and the rest of their life they're everywhere. It's a lot. Most of the Jewish kids do not do it. Of course, they're in other places, and it's a beautiful thing. I'm not saying anything against these gap years. I'm just thinking to myself, is it enough? And I'm also asking, what made you decide, I want to stay? That wasn't the path. You were supposed to go back. What in from your soul told you that's more important to keep studying? I do not know enough yet.
Yeah, it is, I guess I'll start with that year is supremely important. It really is an opportunity for a young man, a young woman, 17, 18 years old, to really be able to focus on learning Torah, to develop the skills that they need to really take it for the rest of their life. It's a supremely important year, and we try to encourage it as much as we can to be able to do so.
Do people, in America, most of the kids do it.
So different schools here have different percentages. It is as many as can go. It's different years, different amounts go. We try to encourage it. I personally feel it's one of the most important things, to be able to spend that year, to be immersed in the land of Israel, amongst the people of Israel, studying the Torah of Israel. There's nothing more beautiful. It's amazing. And it'll last, and it takes a child then for the rest of their life. It stays with them.
They all talk about it. I meet people that are 50. The gap year I had. That's like the base of their identity.
Yeah, it's critical. It really is very important. I was there for a year, and I did sense, I very much felt I wanted to spend a second year. I actually tried to spend the third year, but my parents came to get me. That was the end of that. I needed a second year. I had, I guess one would say, looking back, over-immersed myself. And needed another year to, sometimes, in our lives, we're a pendulum. And I went all in, and it was good to go for a second year and sort of find the right balance of who I was and what I wanted to be. So it was good for me to be there for a second year. But I just felt like
you kept learning Torah after you came.
I went back to Baltimore to study in Meir after my 2 years, and I did college at night while I was there. I just found myself very much at home. I just connected to the learning, connected to my own history. My grandparents are all survivors, all four of them, and there was just something. I grew up for the Yom Tovim. We lived in New Jersey. My grandparents were in Brooklyn, and we would go spend Yom Tov with my grandparents. I grew up in the Shtiblach of Flatbush, surrounded by European, Yiddish-speaking elderly Jews who were just connected to a world that I would have had no connection to other than through that. And then somehow being in Israel sort of just melded together a lot of my own personal life, and it just felt very at home, very comfortable in that world, and just wanted to stay there as long as I could. We still yearn to go back and to live there, but right now we have our mission here, our shlichut, here in North America, but that's certainly the dream, to be able to go back.
Okay. One last question, and then what do you think? We'll give them the opportunity to ask questions, or it's hard enough?
I don't know. See, yeah.
Okay, so one last question.
Anybody would have any questions.
I will ask one last question, and then we'll give you the opportunity to ask me or Rabbi Freundlich or both of us any question you want. But just one last question. We just heard Shransky's message. What's the main message to Jews in Israel and abroad? What do you think is the main message, the main challenge you're facing in this, in the diaspora, outside of Israel? What's the main challenge?
Oh, the main challenge. That's a good question. It's a big question. I think one of the things that I've said many times, I don't know if this is the biggest challenge, but we spoke about this this afternoon at lunch. I just find in Jewish history, I'm a student of Jewish history. I just love reading, listening, learning about Jewish history, and the Jewish world has shifted so dramatically over the last 71 years with the birth of the modern state of Israel and the return of the Jews, or more than half of the Jewish population, back in the land of Israel, and the diaspora Jews who maintained the Jewish people for 2,000 years. There's been this dramatic shift where now the center, the merkaz of Yiddishkeit, of Judaism, has shifted to the land of Israel. And it's not even a question anymore, it's clear, that's where the Jews are. And now for us in the diaspora, it's a matter of staying connected to where Jewish history is unfolding. We're almost like on the sidelines watching the Jewish world develop, continue to develop. And that to maintain a connection to where the heartbeat of the Jewish land, the Jewish people, the center of Torah is now in the land of Israel, just at the center, everything is there. And that's so new. And to be a diaspora Jew, to maintain a healthy, vibrant community, which we have to have. We have to be busy with classes and learning and social events, and the shul has to be growing at the same time, watching the Jewish future unfold before our eyes somewhere else. And that's a real tension, it's a struggle to constantly move forward as a community in the diaspora, to be vibrant, to be growing, and yet to sort of be looking at what is now the center of the Jewish people, and to be connected to that. And it's a very delicate, it's a strange balance to know that, will the Montreal Jewish community still be here 100 years from now? No guarantee. Hopefully we'll be all in Israel by that point. But to still invest in a community while we're here, to invest resources, to invest energy, and yet still have your eye somewhere else at the same time is a complicated, I find complicated balance on a personal level. I don't know if everybody shares that complication, but that's sort of where we are, like yearning to be home and yet having to invest in making sure that our children here have everything that they need while we're here.
Beautiful. Okay, I have one last, after the last question. Okay, can you give me that? Okay, no, because what's the main, because it's my first time in Canada, and it's different. I always saw everything as North America, as an Israeli. Of course, didn't know that inside 5 towns they have differences. That's North Woodmere, completely different than Lawrence. We're completely different than Far Rockaway. That's far away land. So for me, everything 2 months ago was everything the same. Now I see the differences. What's the best and the worst thing in Canada, comparing it to, Atlanta and Baltimore and New York and New Jersey? And
the best thing about Canada is the Canadians, eh?
Okay.
The
differences.
This community, what we found, we spent 15 years in Atlanta, 2 things really stand out being here. One is the number of survivors and how this community is built on so many survivors. There's a European flavor from that Atlanta really just didn't have. And I don't know if everybody, we're the newcomers here, if everybody here really senses that or lives that in the same way that we notice how strong that is, the connection to
the survivors. When I came here on Friday, you told me you have to go to a levaya.
Yes.
Of someone very old survivor. And your wife told me every week you go to a levaya of a survivor.
Unfortunately, as time is going on, that's the reality. But the community is built on children and grandchildren of survivors, and that has a very different flavor, a Yiddish flavor, a European flavor, just a connection to the world that was very different than what we found in Atlanta, which is also connected to the second thing that's very unique, which is the multi-generations that live here. In the States, people are so transient. Grandparents, parents, and grandchildren living in the same cities almost never find.
Yeah, why are they there? Running away from it?
Yeah, running away. It's the nature of the American community, where just people go away, they settle in different cities. And here, there's such a strong family connection where people still know people they went to kindergarten with, and their parents were friends, and it's multi-generation, and it creates a very different type of community, a very strong, close-knit, connected community in a very beautiful way that I've not seen in any American community the same way, to the same numbers, and the same degree that it is here. And Montreal's are sweet, wholesome, nice people. It's the best place. I love it here.
Yeah. After saying it, do you have any questions? Thank you, Rahav. Great interview. First interview ever?
Yes.
You're good. Beautiful. Anyone wants to ask anything? The Rav, me, okay, you choose the. You'll handle the press
I
conference.
can't. My president's going to call on people.
Okay.
I'm going to get in trouble if I choose one for them.
Okay.
Why don't you have Sivan pick 2 or 3
Okay, you can pick.
No problem. Yes, please.
So it's more a comment than a question. You talked about the kidney donation before.
Yeah.
So this is not a theoretical thing. Our nephew in Jerusalem, 35-year-old beautiful guy, 3 young children, looking for a kidney, very serious. And a few months ago, we got a picture, everything's okay, and this young Dati guy with a little baby and a wife donated a kidney, total stranger. And we couldn't understand, how is this possible? They didn't know one another, just a total stranger. And I think you clarified today, you gave us an answer, it wasn't a stranger. It was
Beautiful.
not. So thank you for
Toda.
sharing that.
Thank you for sharing. Toda raba. Beautiful. Toda. Yes, please.
Look, first of all, I want to thank you. It was very inspiring and entertaining. It was truly wonderful. Looking forward in Israel 10 years from now, what is your single greatest hope and greatest fear?
Greatest hope and greatest fear. Wow. Okay, thank you. Don't you have any questions to your rabbi? It's the same answer. Greatest hope and greatest fear, basically, it's based on the same, I would say, identity. Fractions, that's what worries me. I mean, if you're in the left, you're anti-Jewish, settlers. If you're in the right, you hate those people in the left. If you're Haredi, you hate them. If you're anti-Haredi, you hate. I mean, you can't define yourself, and that's danger during these elections. You define yourself by saying who you hate. I ban this, I will not sit with him. That's a problem. Now, I think the answer is, and some people will kill me just because that's my answer. They will say, oh, she's so extreme. Because my answer, that's how I describe things, and I think most of the Israelis will agree we have a problem here. If a secular, someone from the left, from the kibbutz, he feels he's the minority, and this Haredi guy feels he's the minority, and the Israeli Arab feels he's the minority, and the one from the right, he feels he's the minority. Who's the majority? They're all like small minorities, really afraid from one another, hating one another. That's the danger. I think people will agree that's the problem. But the answer is, I would say, Torah. And here, someone will say, oh, no, how can Torah be the answer? Torah is higher than our, I would say, humane definitions. I don't care if you can vote for Meretz and Gantz, but observe Shabbat. You understand? I don't think Torah should be identified only from people. I don't care what you think about Netanyahu. Sometimes it seems that Netanyahu is the most important issue in Israel. No, it is important. I have my opinions. It's okay. We have 9 million opinions of 9 million Israelis. I think the headline of these elections was really to Bibi or not to Bibi. That's like that's the main issue. I think there are things that are even more essential than Netanyahu. Sorry, I hope Sarah Netanyahu will forgive me for saying that the Torah is much more important. And Jewish identity, strong, like I would say, roots, heritage. These words should be the common denominator. Now people tell me, okay, but we disagree with you. I tell them, okay, it's your Torah. Study, learn, invent new things, but be a part of this creation. We can't create a Jewish land, which at the end of the day will not be Jewish. It's not interesting. We came back to our homeland with our culture. Now, it won't be, of course, an extreme party. People really exaggerate when they say, oh, so you want a country like Iran. People tell me, oh, so you're an observant person, and basically you want to live in Tehran, but in a Jewish version of Tehran. So we will kill people on the streets, we'll hang people, we'll hit people if they don't observe Shabbat. Come on, let's be serious. Nobody wants it. Nobody. But it's easy to claim, you want Iran. But I tell them, so what do you want? Manhattan? I'm in Manhattan now. You want Las Vegas? You want San Francisco? You want to be another state of the United States? I mean, so these two options, sometimes we think these are the only options. Iran or, let's say, US. I think we have to create the third option called Jerusalem. It's, of course, not an extreme country like the Muslim states, but it can't be a liberal, open, with I would say, in Hebrew we say tzivyon, like identity, atmosphere, spirit, just a regular country. No, we have to create together this unique mixture called Jerusalem. think that's our mutual mission, when we all should, be part of it without insulting, respecting the differences, the diversity, but creating something that must be, focused. Yeah, it must be a Jewish state, but everybody should feel welcomed and at home, and without forcing anyone. Just people will want to identify it as proud, active Jews. That's my dream, and of course, I want to, in 10 years, I want to cover the Mashiach. That's my scoop. That's my item. I want to cover it. Yeah, that's a headline. Okay, maybe one last question until. Okay, yeah, yes, please.
I think that you've inspired everybody. I have to say that in shul today, after you spoke, my 11-year-old daughter said to me that was amazing. Which does not happen all that often. Hearing
Never happens after I speak.
No, excuse me, people still quote here the meh. They all talk about the meh. I'll tell you, I'm not so cool. Do you say meh in the States too? I should ask the teenagers. So you don't have to say meh when someone takes your seat at shul, right? I say it right? But you have to say meh when, okay, no, they quote you. Yeah, please.
My question to you is this. I think in particular for our daughters, you have been very inspiring. You are inspiring to young religious girls. It's not often that we see a religious woman in the public who balances, in my opinion, I hope you accept this, tzniut, at the same time as using your voice, speaking out loud on behalf of our people. And often I think that girls are given messages of keep quiet, don't sing, don't talk, don't be out there. And yet you're doing it, and we've all come to listen to you. So how do you find the balance?
Okay, that's hard. Thank you first of all. I think the real mission, I want to be, as I said, I want to be honest. I have my philosophy of, what's the role of a Jewish woman today and what you have to do in the outside world and how do I represent Judaism in a secular world when I go to work. I want to tell you that when I really think about it, that's not the real issue. The real issue is to balance it with family. Career, family balance. Going out there as a frum woman, someone even say in Israel, they like to call me when there's something bad going on with the Haredim, so they tell me, as a Haredit, what do you say? And when there's something going on bad with the settlers, the Mitnachalim, as a Tzionit Dati, what do you say? It's okay. In Israel, we always have someone who should be ashamed. 1 week it's the Haredim, 1 week it's the Mitnachalim, the settlers, and 1 week it's Sarah Netanyahu. That's the week I love. Nobody blames me. It's not me. It's Sarah Netanyahu. Go away. I can rest for a week, and then once again, Charadim, Mitnachalim, we're the enemy of everything. Anyway, that's the easy part. To answer, out there, that's easier. The hardest part is to understand that what I do with my kids is more important. We talked about it a little bit in the shiur. To understand that's more essential. It's easy to stand in front of hundreds, thousands even of people and give Bezrat Hashem a good shiur. It's harder when you go back home to not shout and yell at your kids. They're not listening as the people in the shiur, as you might understand already. So it's much harder then to be down-to-earth, normal mother. And I talk to a lot of mothers, and the career out there, it's easier. The hardest part is, I would say, to understand that you are successful if you succeed here. With 5 kids, with your husband, with my grandmother, with my parents, to be in touch, to be, Kibud Orim. That's one of the hardest mitzvot when you learn the details of Kibud Orim. That's so hard, and educating kids. So that, I think, for me, I try to remind myself every time, that's not the most important thing you do. The most important thing you do is there. And that's maybe the message even to your girls. I'm flattered, they were inspired from everything I do out there. But the real message is, how do we tell our kids that what they do in there is so important? And of course, if we tell it to ourselves and we just live by this philosophy, I think they will understand it. That's the real challenge I'm facing. Understanding that bringing kids into this world and educating them, that's the most important mission, although we can do other important things out there. I think that's, I don't know when you go to sleep here in Montreal, but Anyway, we'll stay here to chat with anybody who wants to talk, but I think officially, yeah, we'll end the interview. I want to thank you very much for all the great work you said. Do you know them?
Yeah.
Are they okay? Yeah?
I'll be in trouble if I don't let her in.
Okay, if you approve. Okay, is it the last after the last question? Yes.
I just want to know how your family growing up, not your immediate family, how they adjusted to what you've become.
Oh, my parents, you mean?
Yes.
Okay, so my parents were frightened at the beginning because, as I said, we had no source of information. We never met an observant Jew. Like no one like you. We never even get to know. It's embarrassing. I'm ashamed to say. We had no connection with Jews that are connected to Torah. So they were, of course, frightened. With her girl is gonna be crazy. Just like because all they knew came from TV. And Israeli TV shows you the Michiganers. So their daughter is. You said Yiddish. Here is the comment. So. They thought their daughter is about to become a Michiganer too, and no connection with them, and they were going to lose me, and I'll be so crazy, and start doing I don't know what. So at first, of course, they were terrified, but a few months later, I think they saw it makes me more connected to the family, observing Shabbat, being with them, being with more. It made me a better journalist. By the way, I was already a journalist. I think it made me a better professionally because when you're connected to your roots, you have more things to say. I think I'm a better journalist because it doesn't make you oh, I'm sorry, I'm a nebuch, I'm an observant, I can't do anything. I think the opposite, it makes you better in anything you do. It makes you a better professional. But at the end of the day, when they met my husband and his family, is a big family, they really, they got to know, and they're much, much more connected. Now with their grandchildren, they have a kosher set of dishes, and they take them, of course, to kosher places. We come for Shabbat, they come for Shabbat, and maybe I'll summarize everything, because back then when I was 15, I never believed, listen to this, they came to us for a Sukkot from Israel to see us after 2 months. Now, as I said, I was shocked to discover we have to keep Yom Tov Sheni Shel Galuyot. For me, I thought I'm from Israel. No, according to the halacha, I can't do any melacha on the second day, right? Do you know anything else? I would like to hear. But I must be for 48 hours with the local Jewish community for the first day of Sukkot and the last day of Simchat Torah. Very confusing because you do not really celebrate with the community, but you can't do anything, even at our house. We didn't touch anything. So my parents were keeping Yom Tov Sheni Shel Galuyot this year. Now, they do not always keep Yom Rishon, but in Israel. But abroad, they were keeping 2 days. So for me, you can understand how connected we are, Baruch Hashem. So thank you very much for that, and see you.
Thank you very much for being here. The weekend was really beautiful. Thank you all for coming out. Have a wonderful evening, and Shavua Tov.
Shavua Tov.